Also having relationships and networks outside of your area of expertise and your industry. So getting involved in a wide range of things is also really important, because you never know where that relationship and that knowledge may lead you. So putting your hand up to get involved in projects, in other experiences, which then leads to my third point, which is about the importance of having both breadth and depth in your career. The days of the corporate ladder where you climb and you get promoted from team member to team leader to senior leader to head of to general manager, it doesn't exist. Organisations are becoming leaner and flatter and harder. There are 2 or 3 layers in organisations at best. So a lot of research now shows the importance of having a much more career lattice approach. So that means lots of sideways moves sometimes to get to where you ultimately want to go, with the view that you're getting the breadth of experience. And particularly now in roles of leadership, and the roles that I am interested in and the roles that people are interested in me for, are not about my technical expertise anymore. It's about my role as a leader in an organisation. And part of the way in which I'm able to add value is because I've had a breadth of experience. Yes, I'm a deep technical expert in culture and talent and leadership, but that's not why people employ me today. It's because of the breadth of experience that I've had over industries, over countries, the wide network, my involvement in not-for-profits and other organisations outside of my area of expertise. Now, it takes time to build that up, but you can start right now. You can start whilst you're at university to get involved in a range of different areas. And the final thing that I want to talk about, and just as I sum up, because I can talk about this for a long time, so I'm sure my 10 minutes is already up, and that is just around women in leadership and what leadership actually means. And so I've talked about the importance of having good technical knowledge and having something that you are known for and are respected. But leadership isn't about managing people necessarily. Leadership isn't about being the CEO. Leadership is something that happens today, tomorrow, in any environment where you show up and something happens. You make an impact or a difference or a contribution without being asked or without using necessarily formal authority or position. Leadership occurs when you turn up and something different happens as a result. And I think that's a really important lesson that I learned early, was that I thought leadership looked like status and authority in positions of power with a job title in a corner office. And it's only now that I realise that I can exercise leadership in every possible area of my life. And women can do that particularly powerful because we lead all the time. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and this can be quite controversial, is the notion that women lead differently or better, and there's a feminised notion of what leadership should be. And there's a lot written about women in leadership and how women need to be different. Women just need to be who they are and to show up and turn up and be authentic for themselves. And this kind of idea that we have to become more like men to be successful is one that appalls me, and one that part of the 100% Project advocates against. Because the issue is a broader issue around the fact that we have masculine notions of what leadership looks like. Because, unfortunately, 70% of males or leaders in organisations happen to wear suits and are men. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily the right people in the right roles. So there are challenges for women in leadership, with less than 33% represented in the top 3 levels of the ASX 100 organisations. It is not without its challenges. And those challenges are structural, they're societal. Women often are our own worst enemies in relation to helping other women succeed. The fact that we have children, these are all things that can, take us off track a little bit. But this idea that leadership, or women in leadership, is necessarily needs to be different, or we need to fix the women to fix the leadership in women in leadership problem, is one that I think I seriously, and lots of people are now starting to contest. I'm going to leave you with, I really recommend books, and I've read lots of gender, women leadership books in my career, but this is probably the best book that I've ever read, and I can highly recommend Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In book. Because when I read this, I was thinking, I've thought that for the last 25 years. Unfortunately, I didn't think about writing a book and be very wealthy as a result, but it really resonated with me in a way that other books like this didn't. So if you haven't read, and this is really important for men and women to read this book, and this, she says it a lot more articulately than I do, but this is a really good book to read in kind of helping you think about some of these issues in relation to the three things that I've talked about today. The power of sponsorship and networking and relationships. Being able to stand up and say, I can do that, I'll have a go at that, give me the opportunity to do that, even if you don't think you can do it. I have never applied for a job that I can do. Never. I've always applied for a job that I think, well, it can't be that hard. I can do those three things, and the rest I'll just make up as I go along. And also the importance of having breadth and depth and variety and taking opportunities as they come in your career. That's it. Questions? Hi.
I went up into my career quite high, and then I've spent the last 10 years having children and studying, so I'm about to go back into the workforce this year.
Yeah.
So now I'm stuck because I was there, and now I feel like I'm back here. So I've probably got two questions. One, I don't know what to do, I'm kind of panicking. And two, obviously I've now got kids that I'm picking up from school every day. Is there senior leadership roles of 3 and 4 days a week? Is that during the day off for exercise and coffee still? So I don't know what to do.
Okay, it's a real issue. For very often, it's a very traditional issue. We have this scenario where 50-50 split of men and women leave university. And actually, in some disciplines, women are actually graduating in high numbers with higher qualifications. And it's the kind of classic John and Janet syndrome where you both climb the corporate ladder to a certain degree, and then women go off and have babies. And that is often, we know, because the research shows us, is where career stalls for women. And the transition back into your career, having had children, is a really difficult one, without doubt. Doing that in an organisation when you're taking parental leave is bad enough, but in your situation, you've left work altogether. So without doubt, it is a tricky situation. There is genuinely now known, or a recognition, that whilst organisations are only tapping into 50% of the talent pool, we as a country are going to be at an economic disadvantage. And so most large organisations now know or realise the business case for ensuring that we attract and retain women, particularly women returning from parental leave, back into the workplace. And what is fantastic is to see that a lot, not all, large organisations, where they have to start in their policies and procedures is with flexible working. So for the last 7 years, I have worked flexibly. So I have 2 children. I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I, for the last 7 years, have worked both a compressed week and I've worked part-time. I'm currently working 3 days a week. For the first time in my life, I'm working 3 days a week and I love it. So at some point, I am going to have to maybe step up to 4 days, but I have no intentions of ever working 5 days a week, even when my children go back to school. Because I know that I can perform an output, because it's about output, at the same level as somebody who's working 5 days. I can often do that on a 3-day week. because it's really important for me to be ultra efficient and really, really focused in my work so that I can leave to pick up my children. I'm also a single parent, so there is no backup, living in a country where I have no parents. So in interviews, as I'm now starting to look for my next permanent role, and a colleague or a school mum asked me this question. So when you're interviewing, do you tell them? And I said, no. Because they either want to appoint me because they know that I'm going to be the right person for the job. And then when we get to the conversation about how I'm going to do the job, I just tell them I work compressed week and I have to do drop-offs and I have to do pickups. Now there is a consequence to that, so you will see me at 8 o'clock at night with my laptop, a glass of wine, when the kids are in bed, and I'm on the BlackBerry and I'm on my mobile phone, and that's a choice that I have to make. But it means between 5 and 8 I can spend time with my kids, and it means on a Friday I can spend time with my 4-year-old daughter. So there's compromise, but flexible working can work if you set it as your minimum criteria. And then what you have to do is tell them why that you make that work. The other thing, advice that I would give you is, if you haven't already done so, is networks, contacts, being prepared to go in at a different level. It's just a harsh reality that you will have to do that. But you've been there before, and you've now gone and get extra qualifications. You will get there again, but it may take you, you may have to do a little bit more of this before you necessarily get back to where you were. But making sure that when you are in an organisation or you're making that first transition back into an organisation, you spend as much time getting to know other people and getting to know and expanding your networks, which is, again, difficult when you're working part-time or compressed. But without that, if you just head down and not thinking about that, you will just won't progress, in my experience.
What are those key strengths that have support your success?
What are the, sorry?
Key strengths.
Resilience, being able to recover from setbacks, being able to pick yourself up, whether that be after a really, really tough meeting and you've been caught in the crossfire or you've been shouted at and you really want to go to the toilets and have a cry, and sometimes you do, but being able to recover very quickly. So resilience and optimism and the notion that you're able to recover quickly, because corporate life and leadership is hard at times, and you will be often in situations that you find really, really difficult. So that as we do a lot of work in leadership, and a lot of my work is in leadership, yes, there are lots of things that I can talk about in terms of great communication skills and all of those things. But if I think about really what came to mind immediately and what we talk about and help some of our leaders build, is that the ability to be resilient, to not always feel like they need to know the answers, to be able to sit with the uncertainty and ambiguity, and not feel under pressure to be the expert all the time. And that takes a lot of strength of character to sit there and say, I don't know the answers to those questions. So those are the kind of attributes that are actually more attributable to leadership success than whether you're really good at accountancy or whether you're really good at the technical stuff. That is very helpful. But those kind of attributes around resilience and optimism and courage. Courage is a word that's often used now in the leadership context. About 10 years ago, you wouldn't have heard. Because working in organisations, in large, complex, difficult organisations, often requires you to exercise quite a lot of courage.